Welcome to Legal Beagle.
Welcome back to another fabulous episode of Legal Beagle with attorney Kristina Lyke. Kristina is the founder of Lyke Law, PLLC, and we are very pleased to have her come today to explain how family law and constitutional law come together in the state of Michigan. Welcome back, Kristina.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
I see you have another special guest today, your legal assistant, Delaney. Welcome to the show, Delaney.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being on the show today. So before we swing into the topic, what do you have happening around the office there in July? I understand there's another secret.
There is. We have something exciting. I'm not even sure if Delaney knows this yet, but we're coming together. Of course, we have the Independence Day coming up, and that is one of my favorite holidays. But for the veterans, we want everyone to email us at likelaw.com and choose what veteran that you know, your favorite veteran, or maybe it's a family member. Tell us where they served, what branch they served, and let us know a little bit about them. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it in a drawing. And at the end of the month, about July 30th, we are going to actually give them a nice little gift, because we are so honored to have them represent us, with the military, especially with what's going on in today's world. We are thankful. I've always been thankful. Our firm is very veteran based. So we want to make sure that we take care of our veterans like I have done for the last 19 years of my practice. And we're very proud to do that. I think Delaney will tell you that I'm very military based here and veteran based. We want to make sure that those individuals and family members, because the family members are forgotten a lot of times because they suffer too. They're the ones that are left home a lot, and they need our help too. So we make sure that we try to take care of them accordingly and make sure that their needs are met, and also try to fight for them because they fought for our constitutional rights. We want to fight for them as well for their constitutional rights now.
I love that. It goes beyond thank you for your service. It's thank you for your service, and here's a nice gift. I like
Right.
that.
Right.
So you mentioned that one of your favorite holidays is Independence Day. How does this tie into the practice of constitutional law and family law in Michigan?
I would like to start off with this way.
Okay.
As an attorney, we take an oath, and we're to abide by the Constitution, follow the Constitution, not just the U.S. Constitution, but the state of Michigan Constitution. And when you take that oath, it's very solemn. And I still remember it to this day. My hand was shaking a little bit, because not that I didn't want to take that oath, but that is a very,
it's serious.
It's very serious. So, and it's a very lengthy vow that you're taking there, oath, as I would state. But constitutional law, people don't understand that constitutional law actually is involved in everything you do. I always say this, that you can learn something new each time you pick up the Constitution and read it. It's kind of like reading the Bible. My mom says, "Did you read the Bible today?" No, I read the Constitution.
Which is the next best thing.
But, she's like, "Well, try to do that too, will you?" But as to the Constitution, family law does have a lot of constitutional issues. First of all, you have the fundamental right to marry. We saw that when marriage case was on the line a couple of years ago. I think it was about 10 years ago. We see First Amendment issues, the vaccination issues. Like, some of the kids did not want to participate in the vaccination, but wanted to go to MSU. So our office decided that we would do that pro bono for those MSU students and some of the other students around the state of Michigan, so that they could attend college without having to take the vaccination. I figured if they wanted to use their right to their freedom of religion, which is your First Amendment, then I'm going to do that. And so that's part of family law too. I look at that as family law, but I'm also a constitutional attorney too as well. So, but family law is interesting because we have issues like, for instance, I'll give you an example. We had a postnuptial agreement. It was a divorce. And so in Michigan, postnuptial agreements are not valid. Did you know that, Delaney?
Really?
No, I did not know that.
They're not valid if it's anticipation of a divorce.
Oh.
So that's what we have to look for. They are valid if it's not anticipation of a divorce. So there's a difference there. But what I had a case like that, and the woman was from out of state. They had, it was in contemplation of a divorce. It was because they were having problems and issues like that. So they come to Michigan. They thought maybe things would work out better. Maybe it didn't. They filed for divorce, unfortunately. But the thing of it is she's like, well, I have this postnuptial agreement. So I explained to her about the postnuptial agreement. So I went through all the lines, and I'm like, ooh, this is going to be a tough one because this doesn't follow our law. So I thought about it, and all of a sudden I thought about the full faith and credit clause, which is in the Constitution. And I thought, well, what that means is this: if a state of Mexico or a state of Arizona had the law that this postnuptial agreement in anticipation of the divorce was valid, then it's going to be valid here in the state of Michigan. So that's what I was arguing for her benefit. So that constitutional law does go and take part into family law. And another example that we had was...
Can I ask quickly, did it work?
Yes, it actually did work.
Excellent.
And the individual got more than, I think, 80% of the property, I think, or something of that nature.
Wow.
It was a very big chunk of change, and I didn't think it would work, but it did. I didn't even have to. The good thing is I didn't even have to go to court. And I'll tell you this, it was actually a mentor of mine that I knew, because I always hung out with the older attorneys now I'm kind of the older attorney now, but when I was younger, I always hung out with the more experienced attorneys because I thought I can learn from them. I want to be the best attorney I can. What works for them, and how can I be better? So it was great to actually win against my mentor. So that was kind of cool.
Situation. Wow. That kind of puts a little cherry on top of it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
So you've mentioned a postnuptial agreement. I think most of us have heard of prenuptial agreements. What is a postnuptial agreement?
So a postnuptial agreement is basically what it says. It's after the marriage, right? So they are valid in Michigan, but there are certain caveats. And we have 20 minutes today, I believe, but so I can't go into a lot of details with it. But basically, we want to make sure that it's not in contemplation of divorce, right, Delaney?
Right.
So we want to, and also it has to be fair and equitable, of course. And there's a lot of other different variances that we can go through. And I'm going to actually have a segment on postnuptial and prenuptial of what needs to be brought into the office and what the courts actually look for, because there's different cases out there that tells us what is valid and what's not valid. So, and I think it'd be very helpful, because I always tell individuals when they get married, make sure you get a prenuptial agreement, especially if they had a divorce with me already. Because, and in fact, I like to actually, if they want to bring in their spouse, their upcoming spouse, I say, bring them in. Let me just check to make sure that this one is, a good person for you. Maybe we can go out to dinner, because I don't want my client to make the same mistake again. And you get to know your client very well over the course of time, and you just don't want them, either getting abused or falling into some other trap of, undue hardship of economic times, that someone's going to take advantage of them with, they make more money. So, they're trying to get more money out of them. So we like to always make sure that individuals know to get a prenuptial agreement before they get married. That helps them with the separation of property later on.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of people will be faced with this and go, oh, but you're planning that we're going to separate. It's like, no, this is insurance, right? You're not planning to get in an accident with your car, but the statistics tell us it's likely to happen. So buy the insurance, right?
But you don't want to say that in court. You don't want to say something like your statement, because the judge would be like, well, that seems like it was anticipating
of the separation.
So, we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that And you always prep your client if it had to go to a hearing, because if they were trying to make the postnuptial agreement invalid too, of course.
So that same caveat applies to a prenup as a postnup?
Well, a prenuptial agreement is what we were talking about. I was talking about that a little bit just beforehand. But the prenuptial agreement, there's lots of things that we want to make sure that we have in there. Those are valid in Michigan. But if circumstances do change, and so what are those circumstances? We always hear this, if circumstances change, right? So one of the cases actually talked about, look, you filed a bankruptcy, you had a child with this person, it looks like she wasn't working. So those are changes, and it's a longer marriage than what you anticipated prior to the marriage, right? Not that you anticipated a short marriage, but you had separate property there. And so when you go bankrupt, that property might have went out the window, or maybe they sold it. So times have changed, and so that wouldn't be like a fair and equitable resolution because of the fact of the number of years of marriage, and due to this, the change in circumstances of the bankruptcy and having a child together and things of that nature. And you also want to make sure too that when you're talking to your client, you want to talk to them about spousal support. If you're going to place spousal support in there, you want to make sure that they know the difference between modifiable and non-modifiable spousal support, which we will be talking about in one of our segments, because spousal support is a huge topic, especially with the tax laws that have changed. Then we also want to make sure too that they bring in a list of all the property that they own, like all the separate property. And that is in of itself, lots of paperwork to do, because you want to make sure all the assets are correct. And then we go through all the differences of what is a fair and equitable resolution in a divorce, and what if they plan on having a business or anything of that nature. So there's lots of questions, and we're going to be talking about that at a different segment, because that'll give us a little bit more time. But
I really dig into it.
Correct.
So you mentioned earlier that you like to have both parties come into the office. Does this happen frequently in your years of practice? And what are the ethics around that issue?
So talking about the both parties coming into the prenup, you want to make sure that they can come in. But I have to tell the other person, look, you have the right to have another attorney. Obviously, you can sit in the office, and I also have them sign something like a waiver that says that I've explained that all to them. I explained that they need to have an attorney there. And ethically, I don't even like to meet with both parties. If I can try to not do that, I will do the best I can to not have that happen. Because a lot of times they'll say, oh, that's fine. We're all in agreement of what we can do and what not to do. No, you might be in agreement now, but what if something happens later on? I don't want to get in trouble for that. So I always recommend a couple different attorneys to them, so the other side can actually meet with that attorney, because we actually put a paragraph into the prenuptial agreement that they actually have had the opportunity to meet with counsel to go over this with them and to explain everything with them.
Yeah, which seems like a good thing to do, whether you were in complete agreement when you started and finished this process or not.
That's correct.
So are there any final words on this topic before we wrap up the episode today?
If you need to have a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement drafted, give us a call. We'd be more than happy to explain that. Always get a prenuptial agreement if you're getting a marriage or getting married, because that is always best. And I will say this, most people know this about me. I am the traditional Baptist. Now, I will say this, that we believe, our faith believes that you're married forever. But you know what? That doesn't always happen. So it's always best to have assurances, and make sure that you do have those assurances, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself in a huge mess in divorces, and then it's going to be more money in the future to pay for an attorney, like myself, because the fact is you're going to be fighting over more property. And if you can, and also I would add this, when you talk about custody, you can't place custody of the children in prenuptial agreements, right? Because we have to look at the best interest of the factors, and that is something that would be void. So that portion would be voided out of the contract. All the other rest of the details would actually be valid, but as to the custody, you can't go and say, well, we're going to decide prior to marriage that, guess what, you're going to have one kid, I'll have another kid. You don't even know if you're going to have children or not. And plus, that's a future event. And we're not supposed to be putting future events in there. So make sure that you contact us about your favorite veteran, your family member, because we want to make sure that we give honor to them. Right, Delaney?
Right.
And that's we really appreciate our military individuals, because I know that certain people don't understand the values that they have to go through and what they suffer to go and give us our constitutional rights.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I really appreciate you ladies being here with me.
Thank you. Have a great day.
And that's it for today's episode. Kristina Lyke has helped countless Michiganders fight back with truth, evidence, and strength. Reach out to her at likelaw.com and be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.